This week in history was an interesting one. It was in the middle of the summer. Yeshua was performing miracles. People started following him in droves, and then something happens that makes people think twice about following this Yahoo because he challenged them. You won't likely pick up on this in your regular Bible, but we'll show you how it all comes together tonight in the chronological Gospels. And we're going to challenge your thinking just like Yeshua did with the disciples. It's just something we like to do at the end of the sixth day after the sun is set on Shabbat Night Live!
It's Shabbat Night Live from Charlotte, North Carolina, with your host, Michael Rood. Join Michael's guest hosts, Scott Laird and Matthew Hall. Now, here he is, the director of the Chronological Gospels International Relations, Scott Laird.
Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. And that's the big question lately. Is Michael coming back to the first hour of Shabbat Night Live? The answer is a definitive yes. In fact, Michael's return to Shabbat Night Live is just the beginning. And don't forget, the new Shabbat Night Live will be 90 minutes. A first half hour with Michael right here in this chair, followed by a full 60-minute teaching. And that is coming very, very soon. In fact, Michael is working on a whole bunch of new projects, and the team here at Rood Awakening is working feverishly to make it all happen, to bring it to you. And one of those who is helping to get all of that together is my co-host, the ministry coordinator of Rood Awakening International and the leader of Aviv Worship, right here. Please welcome Matthew Hall.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, we're all working very closely to get these things done for Michael.
Yes.
And as he prepares to return to Shabbat Night Live, for one thing. Now, I'll probably be sitting where you are, and you'll be able to get some work done.
Unless I come on the stage and tackle you and, take your seat.
Yeah, or you could do a tap dance in the corner.
We could.
That'd be
I
fun.
could be the guy out on the street with the microphone asking questions.
You could do that. Yeah, we could do a whole a late show type of thing. Now, we recapped all of this last week. Michael has 3 new projects coming up in the next few months. But let's talk about them just in case you missed things. Shabbat Night Live in September is going to be a 90-minute show. That's the first half hour is kind of like what we do here.
Right.
But again, I'll be sitting where you are. Michael will be here. We'll be doing a few different things that Michael likes to do.
Sure.
And then it'll be a full 60-minute teaching after that. And that takes place in September is when we're aiming to do that. The Rock and Roll Bible Show.
The Rood Rock and Roll.
The Rood's Rock and Roll Bible Show. Tell us a bit about the Rood's Rock and Roll Bible Show, because it involves some Aviv fellowships that you talked about last week.
Right, yeah. Last week we talked about the Aviv fellowships and what we're doing with raising up leaders and just bringing that sense of accountability. But the awesome part about it is, and when Michael came back, found out what we were doing with the Aviv fellowships, then he had his idea about the weekly Wednesday Rood's Rock and Bible Show. It all kind of just meshed together. We said, well, we'll just implement that into what we're doing, and we'll have these fellowships stream in. And so we're all pumped. We're getting things ready. We're getting close. The official launch is working in the process with the Aviv fellowships, and things are moving along nicely with that, and we're getting ready to ramp up the Bible show. But it's going to be exciting. People are going to really be able to connect with Michael in a way they haven't in a long time. Some people have come to events that we've done here at the studio, and it's been more of an intimate type setting. Some people who are watching Shabbat Night Live have been to one of those. But what we're doing here is basically it's a first come, first serve.
Okay.
So we're hoping to get up to 25 groups gathered together that tune in and stream into the Rood's Rock and Roll Bible Show. That's a tongue twister.
I was just going to say we're having trouble
say that
getting
10
through
times
that name.
fast. But they stream in, but it's a first come, first serve. So the first 25 that register for the next week's Bible show will get to be participating in it. So it's going to be random, and people can kind of fight for a seat.
Oh, right on.
So
That would be good.
Yeah.
Michael likes a good fight.
Yeah.
And then in November, well, of course, we have the Chronological Gospels television series for which Michael is doing shooting in Israel, and we're having lots of fun with that. That's his new Indiana Jones look that we talked all about last week. Now, speaking of television shows, it is time for What's on the Rood Tube. Okay, this is where we tell you what programs are on when this week all over the world. Let's start off in Europe because, they're in a time zone ahead of us. We might as well start with them. On the Inspiration Network in the UK, you can watch tonight's teaching, Passover, The Path to Freedom, Part 1, on its own without the rest of Shabbat Night Live, next Friday at 1 p.m. UK time. Now, also on Inspiration Television, you can watch the Inspiration Network, I should say. You can watch the entirety of tonight's Shabbat Night Live teaching in Europe at Saturday, 1 a.m. UK time. And then the Gospel Channel in Europe and Omega TV in Iceland, you'll be watching Journey to the Center of the Word. You'll be watching the Ark of the Covenant series, Part 6, this week. You can check our broadcast schedule by clicking the TV tab on our website for broadcast times there, because we repeat that program quite often in Europe. We're also on roodawakening.tv. You can check out all kinds of things to watch on our website, or on Enlace, the Spanish-speaking network. We're also on YouTube, of course, and iTunes, and you can catch Shabbat Night Live on demand on Google TV and Roku. Man, we're in a lot of places. So that's that. As we mentioned earlier, this week in Bible history was the 26th week of Yeshua's ministry, of his 70-week ministry. If you've never heard that before, yes, Yeshua's ministry was not 3.5 years, 70 weeks. That's all it was. And there was a lot going on that we can correlate with the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. So let's go there. This is your calendar here. If you don't have one yet, get one. It's $19.95, available on our website. There's 15 months. We're only on the 5th month. You still have 10 left. Still a bargain. I highly recommend you get it. We're on August 7th, which is the 4th Shabbat in the month of Av. There you can see it on your screen there. And something you may not be able to see are the notes on Wednesday of this past week, which refers to the events number 77 to 85 in the Yeshua's ministry in the Chronological Gospels, because in the Chronological Gospels, there's like over 300 events in Yeshua's ministry that Michael broke his Yeshua's life into, so that we could have bite-sized pieces of this is what he did today, this is what he did next week, that kind of thing. And this week there's a whole lot of them going on. You know, number 77 to 85, a lot of events. Right. So we're going to go there, and we're going to take a look at that. So it's these types of events that Michael Rood will be expounding on, as a matter of fact, in the Chronological Gospels television series. Now, along with that, it's an hour-long show, part of the detail here, where Michael will dive into the archaeology of the Chronological Gospels. Not only what Yeshua was doing on a week-to-week basis, but why it matters what he did when he did it. You see where I'm going with this? Because there's a significance. What was going on in that culture at that time? He spoke on it at that moment. And then, of course, all kinds of aha moments when you read the Chronological Gospels. All kinds of exciting things like that. In fact, Michael may do a show on This Week in Bible History. Who knows? He might do this very one. But until then, we are going to talk about it right now. Sometimes when we talk about one event in particular on the show, we go into great detail. But this week is a collection of events that create a story of their own from 3 of the 4 Gospels. It's quite an involved week in Yeshua's life. And we usually try to correlate this with a reference in your regular Bible. But tonight, if you don't have the Chronological Gospels, you're going to have trouble following along on this one. But that's okay. Just sit back while we show you what is happening here in the Gospels, in case you don't have this handy-dandy book here. It's something you will only see in this book, and it's really quite amazing. So let's go there. It's events number 78 through 85, and that starts on page, 115 here. I look like an old man doing that. Doing one of these.
The pull away.
I don't know. It's page 115. This is what's happening here. So there's a lot going on. Event number 77, Yeshua preaches. So again, remember, it's all going on in 1 week. So Yeshua preaches, that's event number 77. Then he heals a blind man, number 78. You know, no big deal, just another thing in a day's work.
Well, he wasn't just blind, he was dumb and possessed by a demon.
Yes, blind and dumb. So that's, quite involved there. And then more people gather as the news spreads about the healing of the blind and dumb man. People are like, oh, who is this guy? And then so, of course, the multitudes gather and we want to see more of this magic show, for lack of a better term. They start challenging what he did for the blind and deaf man now in event number 80.
Well, notice what Michael says in event number 80, blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is defined.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. I mean,
That is big. Yeah, that's. You ever want to know what that is? That's in the Chronological Gospels, number 80, event number 80. And then after this event, they want more signs. They're like, okay, well that was cool, but we don't know if that blind and deaf thing. I don't know about that. We want more signs. So, so Yeshua gets a little fed up at this point in event number 81. He won't give them any. Forget it. You're not getting any more. And then something weird happens in event number 82. Yeshua's family wants to have a word with him. So you see how this is all developing? And unless you have the Chronological Gospels piecing it together, you'd never gather this.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, okay, Yeshua, maybe you shouldn't be ticking off the people like this. So, but then his response, of course, is, who is my brother? Who is my mother? It's those who obey my word, kind of thing. So,
which, I mean, it's funny because we talk about how he lived a life that we live and without sin, and how many of us in our lives have done something radical and it goes in the face of society or whatever everybody else expects, and then people are questioning it, and then our parents pull us aside. You sure you want to do this because you're putting a bad name on our family?
Like an intervention, kind of. That's kind of what was happening. It was an intervention with Yeshua.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what happened there. And then number 83, episode number 83, he starts teaching the parable of the sower all of a sudden. It's sort of his response to everything, prophesying that the number of people who truly want to know him, instead of relying on a sign and wonders, will dwindle. The real people who want the
I think
truth.
this is the developing. It's not in here, but that's the developing in the creation of the narrow path.
Yes.
That's when the path started to shrink
You're
down.
right. Yeah, because they dwindle, they lose interest, or just get bored. And sure enough, in event number 84, he has a dwindling number of supporters now, as he explains to those who really want to know what the parable means. Only those who really want to know. Then he explains it. So let's read that parable from Luke's perspective. If you wouldn't mind, Matthew, it's Luke 8, 4-8. And
Sure.
that is on page, 118, did we say?
Yeah,
118 at the bottom right. Go ahead.
When many people were gathered together, coming to him of every city, he spoke a parable. A sower went out to sow his seed. As he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and it was trodden down, and the fowls of the air devoured it. Some fell upon a rock, and as soon as it sprung up, it withered away, because it lacked moisture. Some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up with it and choked it. Other seeds fell on the ground, on good ground, and sprang up and bore fruit 100-fold. When he had said these things, he cried out, "He that has an ear to hear, let him hear."
Yeah, now I don't know about you, but I always read that in the context of, oh, that's the future. When my word is preached in the future, this and that will happen, etc. But when you read it in the context of the Chronological Gospels, you realize that he's talking about events during that week. These things that we just talked about, this development of,
Well, he was essentially telling them, what kind of soil are you?
Yeah.
Are you a rock? Are you a thorn? Where do you fit into this category? As all these things have been happening, you see the ones who are the thorns and the ones who are the rocks, and then now he's left with the good, pure soil.
Right, and you hit the nail on the head right there. You see right in front of you this week what these people are doing. He was calling those people out, is what he was doing at that moment. He wasn't just talking about the future.
I think it's a principle that applies through everything that we do within the ministry of Yeshua as we walk it out in our daily lives.
Right, and that's why I love the Chronological Gospels, because it's like watching a movie of all of this happening like right in front of you. That's why this brings it alive, you know what I mean? That's what makes the Chronological Gospel such an eye-opener, for me anyway. I mean, you learn more in this book than you ever will reading the Gospels on their own, trying to figure out things for hours and hours with manuscripts, from ancient sources, left to right, laying all over your table. Michael Rood has already done that for 40 years. 40 years worth of work. It's all done for you. It's all right there. And it's, what, $69 is what we charge for this thing? I mean, that's pretty good. So it's well worth every penny. And it's not just me saying. I mean, go to our store at aroodawakening.tv and look at the reviews by people who, just like you, they're calling it words like, I just went there today, they're calling it priceless, life-changing. I mean, these are people, these aren't coerced testimony. These are real.
Right.
This is what people are saying. And so that's our whole goal here at Rood Awakening. I mean, priceless, life-changing teaching. That's what we want to give you. But the only way we can do that is through your donations. I mean, I don't know about you, but after I came out of the church and started doing studies on my own and began to understand what Yehovah expected of me as a believer, I kind of forgot about giving for a while. And then there's the teaching by some in the Hebrew root circles that, we don't need to give, or we don't need to tithe anymore because that was only for agricultural purposes. Well, or, we don't need to give anymore because there's no temple or there's no priesthood. But so often we forget that people are dedicating their lives to make the ministry happen. People have to come to work each day at a Rood Awakening, for example,
Right.
In order to bring you Shabbat Night Live and all of Michael's teachings. How is it that we think that their efforts are not worth paying for? Both Yeshua and the Apostle Paul said the worker is due his wages. In other words, if you benefit from a ministry, any ministry, you need to return the favor and support what they are doing through your increase. If you would like to do that tonight on a consistent basis for a Rood Awakening, look into our Bring It to the World program at bringittotheworld.com. If you would like to give, just once tonight, here's how you can do that right now. Where in the Torah are the instructions on how to celebrate the Shabbat?
Here's what you do, Diana. Get yourself a concordance, look up Sabbath, and read every context, 2 or 3 chapters before and after, because first of all, we don't celebrate Shabbat. We keep the Shabbat. We celebrate the feast because we can't keep them. There's a difference. Keeping, which is shomer, which is to guard the Sabbath. The Almighty set apart the Sabbath day. He made it holy. He asked us to keep it holy, and that would be the sign that we are his people. Now, the people who are not his people will come up with anything. They'll come up with any different kind of Sabbath. But, he said 6 days he worked, the 7th day he rested, and so the 7th day is the Sabbath. That's the day of rest. So if you want to learn more about it, then read the scriptures. The Bible is not a compendium of one-verse answers. I'm speaking, Diane probably knows this, but I'm telling the rest of you that have grown up in the religious world, you think you're going to get all your answers in life by, a quick 20-minute sermon or a one-verse answer. I would imagine that it's probably going to take you hours to search out every occurrence of the Sabbath and to read it, but that's when you get the perception and the perspective of the Almighty. We really don't care what men say about the Sabbath. We want to know what the Almighty says about it, so read it in context. That is your job. I've already done mine.
Will God send an end-time prophet before Yeshua returns?
That end-time prophet is prophesied by Malachi. It says that Elijah will come before the great and notable day of the Lord. Now, that day of the Lord is referring to the period of time in which the Lord does the judging. It is a time of great trouble upon the earth. And it says that Elijah will come before that day. Now, when the Pharisees sent the Levites and Kohanim to ask Yohanan ben Zechariah, John the Baptist, why are you outside the system when we've got all these mikvahot on the Temple Mount, and in every community there's a mikvah, there's a baptismal pool, mikvah, in every one of these. Why are you doing this out in the middle of the wilderness? What is going on? Are you Elijah? He says, no, I'm not Elijah. Are you the prophet of whom Moses spoke? No, I'm not the prophet. Then who are you? And he said who he was and why he was sent. So he's asked if he is Elijah, and he said, no, I'm not. He's not Elijah in the sense that he comes before the great and notable day of the Lord. He is the prophet that comes to make straight the way of Yehovah. Prepare his path, okay? Now, later on, the disciples are asking Yeshua. It says that Elijah must come before the Messiah comes. And he said, you're right. And he did come, and they did with him what they wanted to do with him. And this, they finally understood that he's speaking of Yohanan ben Zechariah. Now, John the Baptist, that's his real name, Yohanan. He was the son of Zechariah. He was a Cohen. He was an Aaronite priest, really. And it is that very thing that Yeshua said this was Elijah, because he came in the spirit and power of Elijah, but he was not that end-time Elijah. Where the end-time Elijah shows up is in the book of the Revelation. It is just before the last trumpet sounds. It's 11th chapter of the book of the Revelation. And it is, we are told, Yeshua tells us, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel, which happens 3.5 years after the confirmation of the covenant, when you see that, get out of there immediately. Don't come down and get a suitcase, a sleeping bag, or a jacket. Better get out of Dodge immediately and pray that you don't have any children or it's on the Sabbath. You've got to get out of there immediately, because then will come great tribulation, such as not been from the beginning of time, no, nor ever shall be, and except those days would be short, and there should no flesh be saved. He says, get out of there, and don't listen to the false prophets who say I'm coming back in secret, tamion, in a secret tribulation rapture. Don't listen to those who said, I've already come back and you have to go to me. No, this is what it's going to look like lightning splitting the sky open from the east to the west, and the trump of the archangel sounds, and he gathers together his saints. That is what it's going to look like. Nobody is going to be able to fake this one out. Now, in the book of Revelation, just before that last trumpet sounds, there are 2 witnesses in Jerusalem when everyone else is told to get out. Anyone that stands up against them, they are melted like a bad marshmallow at a campfire girl's cookout. And nobody can stand against them. But when their testimony is completed, and I say this is Elijah and Moses, the Torah and the prophets, and it is a real flesh and blood prophet who is calling us back to the Torah, taking us right back to keeping the commandments, because that's what it says. The Satan goes out to make war with the woman and those who have the testimony of Yeshua and keep the commandments. Those who think they have the testimony of Yeshua and don't keep the commandments, they are not even in the picture. They're not even in the fight. He really doesn't care anything about them. They're just fodder. I mean, put them in a New World Order concentration camp, throw them some bread and water, just get those people out of the way. What we're going for are those who have the mark in their forehead. We're going for those who are taking a stand, and he is wroth with those who keep the commandments, because they are the ones that have the real testimony of Yeshua. Not some kind of fake Jesus, not 8-pound, 6-ounce baby Jesus, the real Messiah who lays down the law. This is exactly how he's going to rule the earth, and we are standing with him on that particular thing. So we have an Elijah for the last days that's coming, and he is the one that comes before that great and notable day of the Lord in which the real judgment falls. 3.5 years to give the testimony. When their testimony is completed, that is when they're killed, lay dead in the streets. And that's why I say, I believe that's when we're all going to die, when our testimony is completed. So my advice, ladies and gentlemen, get a testimony, drag it out just as long as you possibly can, and when it's over, it's over. You only have to be faithful to the end. You don't have to live until the end.
And thank you for submitting those questions. Keep them coming. And by the way, before we hand things over to Michael Rood tonight for tonight's teaching, I want to remind you of a teaching of Michael's that you can get for free. You can get a copy of the Red Sea Crossing right here. We'll send it to you along with 50 promotional little business cards that we call Red Sea Crossing cards right there. And what you can do is just hand these out to people. It tells them where they can watch the Red Sea Crossing for free online, but you will have the hard copy that you can get and give it to your friends. Give it to everybody you know. Give these cards out like candy. You can always get more. Just call us. We'll give you some more. All you have to do is fill out the form at aroodawakening.tv/RedSeaFree. Now, in just a minute, we'll be joining Michael in the tent of Abraham for the Kiddush and tonight's teaching, Passover, the Path to Freedom, Part 1. And remember to stay tuned after Michael's teaching for another teaching. This one is Michael's brand new show in Europe, Journey to the Center of the Word. But first,
Michael Rood here, still walking, still on my way to Shabbat Night Live for September 4th. You do not want to miss a single episode of this coming year, because with our new features, such as More on the News, and certainly with the election year, we've got plenty of morons to choose from. We're also going to be having questions and complaints from cyberspace by live Skype, and so other people can get involved with this. But the exciting thing that I've been looking forward to for the entire year, Patterns of Evidence, the movie that was released across the nation this last year. We now have the filmmaker himself who's going to be with us Shabbat Night Live right in the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, where we are going to be showing the movie to the entire world. You do not want to miss Tim Mahoney and David Rowe, the Egyptologist, live with us Shabbat Night Live. I'm getting back there. You don't want to miss this. We'll see you then. The traditions of modern Judaism remind us of what we did during the temple period. Not what we did, but they remind us of what we did. But the followers of Yeshua also have some other traditions, some other things that are reminders of what has been accomplished for us. They are reminders of what goes back long before the temple period, and it reminds us of what happened the very year that Yeshua was crucified and resurrected. At the Last Supper that Yeshua had with his disciples, the Greek scriptures tell us that he took arton. He took leavened bread and broke it. Of course, the English, the Greek, and all scriptures tell us that this Last Supper was before the Feast of Passover, and the following morning, the Pharisees refused to go into Pilate's judgment hall because they didn't want to be defiled so that they could eat the Passover. This is not the Passover meal, and every time we serve bread and wine gives us the opportunity, as Yeshua says, as often as you do this in remembrance of me. And so, as Yeshua said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. This represents my shed blood. And he spoke the prayer that the Melech Tzedek shared with Abraham thousands of years ago. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah our Elohim, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua took bread, and he blessed the Most High, saying, Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. As often as you do this, we do this in remembrance of him. L'chaim.
welcome. You are just in time for an adventure that continues where we left off last time with Abraham. This time we'll talk about his son, Isaac, and his grandsons, Jacob and Esau, and how this one family's history is the prequel to the path to freedom for the Israelites, Passover.
We left off at the end of the 22nd chapter of Genesis after laying the foundations of the birth of the nations. That from the flood of Noah, we trace the lineage of the family of Shem through Abraham, and now we find that the Almighty speaks directly to Abraham several times during his life, and the culminating event was when the Almighty told him to sacrifice, to kill the child that he was given by promise. And this was the ultimate test in Abraham's life. If he has really heard from the Almighty all these other times before, then if he is obedient to actually sacrifice his son, then he will see that this is a reality, that the promise of the Almighty, that all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to Abraham and to his offspring. He knows that this will come to pass if the Almighty has actually spoken to him. And so he went to the children of Het, and he said, entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field, and for as much money as it is worth, he shall give it to me. And Ephron, in verse 11, says, nay, my lord, hear me. The field, I'm going to give it to you. And the cave that is therein, I will give it to you. Now, this is not a natural cave. This is one that is chiseled out so that they can actually make a sepulcher in it. These are all over the land of Israel. As a matter of fact, at the Garden Tomb, which you can't see from the Garden Tomb, but right on the other side of the wall where this cave has been chiseled out, which fits in every description, the burial place of Yeshua, right on the other side of that is the richest and the largest tomb system in all of the land of Israel.
The Garden Tomb is the possible site of the resurrection of Jesus, Yeshua, and the final resting place of Joseph of Arimathea. There is some debate between different denominations and academic scholars as to where exactly in Jerusalem and the Old City was Yeshua crucified, and where lies the tomb from whence he rose. The tomb is located on the north side of Jerusalem, outside the Damascus Gate, which closely resembles the location described in the Gospels.
And then we come back in verse 12, and he says, I pray you, hear me. I will give you money for the field. Take it from me, and I will bury my dead. And then finally, Ephron comes back, and he says, the land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What's that between me and you? Just bury your dead in it. Now, in chapter 24, now we come to a very important thing to understand, and we have to understand this. We're going to understand the book of Hebrews even. Abraham was old, well stricken in age. Yahovah had blessed Abraham, but Abraham said to his eldest servant, Eliezer, who ruled over all that he had, he says, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. Now, this is different than a last will and testament because and we're going to see that this testimony that is being taken, this sworn oath that is happening, well, let's read about it first. In verse 3, I will make you swear by Yahovah, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites. Do not get one of these perverts and their offspring, their women, to be the wife of my son. No, you are going to go back to my country, back to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. And so he then made him swear this oath. Now, he said, now, what if I go back and the damsel will not follow me, will not come back? And Abraham said, then you are released from this oath. Because the Almighty had already instructed Abraham. He had given him revelation to not allow his son, Yitzhak, to marry a Canaanite. Send one back and get someone from your household, back in Syria, where you're from originally. that is where you go. Someone who knows something about the true God. We're going to see the reality of this in just a little bit.
If you've ever read the Bible and found things that didn't line up, or heard a sermon that left you with more questions than answers, the Chronological Gospels is for you, including the world's most accurate timeline of the Messiah's 70-week ministry, plus study tools never seen in any other Bible. The Chronological Gospels unlocks the secrets to understanding the Word of God. Gospel accounts are reorganized and annotated using amazingly accurate historical records, along with exclusive cultural commentary. Available on its own, the Chronological Gospels also comes in several packages, including videos and books, study tools to enrich your rediscovery of the Messiah's ministry, the Chronological Gospels Educator's Edition, Essentials Package, and Scholar Package. Call or visit our website today for more information and to order your copy of the Chronological Gospels.
And so, at this point, if the damsel, if this young virgin doesn't follow Eliezer back, he's off the hook. This is not a last will and testament. It can be changed, and it can be changed by circumstances. He knows that he's got to go back up to Haran, and he's got to make a big impression. So he takes 10 camels, he loads them up with clothing and with jewels, and with gold and with silver. And so when he got up to the city of Nahor in Mesopotamia, on the other side of the Euphrates, he stopped and he prayed. In verse 12, O Yehovah, Elohim of my master Abraham, I pray, send me good speed this day. Behold, I am standing here by the well of water. And when the daughters of men come out of the city to draw water, let it come to pass that the damsel whom shall I say to, I pray, give me something to drink, that this one will say, after she gives me a drink, let me then water these 10 camels who have been traveling for a week to get there, and they are going to be extremely thirsty. It is going to be a long and a hard job to draw all this water for this man of dignity, this man of wealth, and she is going to offer to serve me. And let this be the one who you have chosen to be the bride for Yitzhak, the son of my master. And it came to pass, before he had even finished the prayer, Rebekah came out, who was born to Bethuel, which we had just read about in the previous chapter. Now Rebekah shows up, and he looks at her, and this girl is an absolute knockout. She gives him a drink, and she then says, allow me to water your camels as well. And so he then immediately begins to pray, a prayer of thanksgiving. And she says, please come to our place. We have provender enough. We have enough straw for the bedding for your camels and all. Please come. And so then Eliezer goes into the house of Bethuel, and Laban, her brother, is there, and he explains the entire thing, that Abraham is extremely wealthy, and he has a son. And he said, go back to my kindred and find a wife. And so I was praying at the well, and these are the specifications. This is what I asked for, and this is exactly what Rebekah came out and did. And so I put this extremely expensive gold bracelet on her because I didn't want this girl to get away. And she said, please come to my house. And so here I am. And when they heard it, Bethuel and Laban said, this is of Yehovah. There is no question. What can we say? And then they said, she's yours. And then he said, please, I would like to leave immediately tomorrow. And they said, well, let's have at least a week of festivities. And he said, no, please don't cause me to slacken time. And so they went to Rebekah, and she said, yes, I will go. they gave her some servants to go with her. These were wealthy people too. And so then they get back. They're nearing the area where Yitzhak lives and Abraham. And at that point, Yitzhak goes out in the field and she sees him from afar and says, "Who is this?" And they said, "This is your master. This is your future husband." And so she lights off the camel, covers her face up, and it tells us that she went to meet her intended. And it says in verse 67 of chapter 24, and Yitzhak brought her into his mother's tent, took Rebekah, and she became his wife. So there you have a fairly fancy wedding ceremony. He takes her into the tent, and now she is his wife.
Over the past year, A Rood Awakening International's ambassadors have been sponsoring 89 countries to take the gospel of the kingdom to the world. With these supporters' help, A Rood Awakening International has been able to broadcast on the Inspiration Channel in the UK, the Church Channel in the US, and Hope TV in Canada. But we need your help to reach the world. Now you can join the Ambassadors Club and help bring the message of Yeshua to those countries we've not yet been able to reach. There's still a great need to reach countries such as Ukraine, Syria, Malaysia, Korea, and so many more. With your gift of $100 per month or more, or your one-time gift of $1,200 or more, Michael Rood would like to bless you with this pocket watch. Call today with your monthly gift of $100 or your one-time gift of $1,200 or more and become a member of the Ambassadors Club.
And then in verse 19, these are the generations of Yitzhak. Abraham's son, Yitzhak, he was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, to wife. And then when she was 60 years old, that is when she bore Esau and Yaakov. Esau, he came back from a hunting trip and he smelled the pottage that this little red lentils that Yaakov had been cooking, and he says, "I'm going to starve to death. I didn't obviously didn't get any game. I'm going to starve to death if you don't feed me." And so Yaakov got him to swear to give up his right as the firstborn and the blessing that come, the right of the firstborn, and the double portion that would come to him if he would feed him right then. And so it says that he despised, he treated as nothing his birthright because he had to fill his belly. And that was more important to him, satisfying his own earthly desires, than the blessing that he would get as a double portion at the end of his father's life. And Yitzhak told Esau, "I want you to go out and I want you to get some venison. I want you to kill a deer, come back and roast it up for me, make it the way you make it because I love it. And then I'm going to bless you before I die." And so Rivkah overheard this. She said to him, "Go and kill 2 goats and bring them in. And I'm going to fix it up. And you're going to go in and serve it and get the blessing from your father." He said, "He'll know the difference." And she said, Give me the goat skins. And so they put the goat skins on the back of his hand, on the back of his neck. I mean, Esau had to be one hairy person for goat skin to be the thing that actually fools the blind Yitzhak. And so Rivka, who starts this whole thing, makes up the food, and then Yaakov goes in. And then once it's done, it's done. And so Esau comes back and he says, I prepared this. And he said, wait, who is this that was in beforehand? And Esau, they figure out finally that it's Yaakov that did this. And he already took the blessing. And so Esau is absolutely furious. And it says that in verse 41 that Esau hated Yaakov because of the blessing that his father blessed him with. And he willingly gave up his birthright because of it. So he blessed him and he charged him. He said, do not take a wife of the daughters of the Canaanites. Do not do it. Arise, go to Padanaram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. So he said, go find one of your cousins. And again, Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Yitzhak his father. And so we see over and over and over this whole thing with Canaan, the Canaanites, which takes us back to Genesis 9 where we began the whole story. It is one story. We have to read it all together. That's why we stick to it and boil these things down to where we understand what the Almighty is communicating to us, because he's communicating to us now. We are living among the heathens, among the pagans, but he says, come out and be separate. Come out from these people and be separate and touch not the unclean thing. And on the way, Yaakov dreamed a dream, and the ladder reached up into heaven, and the Almighty again came and he spoke to him. And he again reiterated that this land would be theirs. Now, Yaakov rose up in the morning in verse 18, took the stone that he put for a pillow, he set it up for a pillar, as a memorial pillar, an altar. And this is what we see. Every time the Almighty is speaking to one of these patriarchs, they set up an altar to remember that place. And the children of Israel are told, do not remove these altars. Do not take down these pillars. Do not remove the ancient landmarks when you come into the land. You have no idea what they're there for. He knows what they're there for. And they still are there to this day.
The altars mentioned were usually built to commemorate a direct interaction with God in a specific location, typically after a significant event. Usually created from earth or unwrought stone, they served as a surface to place a sacrifice to God.
And now, chapter 29. Then Yaakov went on his journey and came to the people of the east, and he found himself in Haran. In verse 5, he said, as he met these people who are out there waiting for the stone to be removed over this well so that they can water their sheep, he said, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? And they said, well, we know him well. And he said, is he well? And they said, he is well, as they spoke by the well. And then he said, no, look, there's Rachel. Rachel, his daughter, is coming with his sheep right now. Isn't this a coincidence? And when he saw Rachel, he absolutely flipped out. The man is 75 years old. This girl is a knockout, an absolute knockout, just like the rest of the women in the family. And he is just head over heels for her. He then goes to Laban and says, I'm in love with your daughter. I will work for you for 7 years and give her to me as my wife. And so he worked for 7 years, and at the end of it, they had this is a big wedding ceremony. Now, if he would have done it the way his father did it, and taken her into the tent, this following thing would not have ensued. But no doubt that night that Laban made sure that he was just a little bit 3 sheets to the wind, having a little bit too much celebration, and he got it all prepared. And so when he went into the tent to then meet with his new wife. When he woke up in the morning, it was Leah. Leah, the older daughter, who says she had weak eyes. This is not the woman he had the marriage ceremony with the night before. It's Leah. And so he goes to Laban, you've tricked me. You've tricked me. And he said, well, we can't allow the younger to get married before the older. That's the way we do it here. And so he says, fulfill her week, and then we'll give you Rivka as well. And so this is what happened. After the week, then they gave Rivka to him, and she became his wife, and then he had to work for 7 more years after that. Well, at the end of this period of time, we see that between Rachel and Leah, and their 2 handmaids, which is Bilhah and Zilpah, that they have, in the end, they have 12 sons. And but while they're still living in Padamaran, they have 11 of these sons. And during this period of time, it says that Laban changed the remuneration of Yaakov, had done it 10 times. And finally, his wives said, you know, he has devoured all of our money. He has sold us out. He's devoured all of our money, and we have got absolutely nothing. He has run you over the coals over and over. Get us out of here. And so Yaakov takes his wives, all the possessions that he has, and escapes while his father-in-law is out shearing the sheep. He is gone. He's left for a whole week, and then he finds out, and so he chases them down. Laban chases him down, and when he catches up with him, he said, why have you stolen my sons and daughters? He's being grandsons and granddaughters and his daughters. Why have you stolen them? And he explains why he stole them and why he had to get out of there. Yaakov said, no, we didn't steal them. And if anyone did, may be cursed with death. Well, he didn't know that Rivka, his beloved wife, had stolen these gods. And so she put him in a case. She went in and sat down on top of that case and said, excuse me, Father, I can't get up right now. I'm in the way of all women. And so he moved on. But it was Yaakov that pronounced the curse over his wife. And when she then entered into the land on their way to Ephrat, which is also called Beit Lechem, the house of bread, but on the way to Ephrat, there she bore her last child, Benjamin, and died. And he set up a pillar there, which you can still, right from the top of the hill, you can still look down upon that.
Jenny, you mentioned that your favorite antioxidant is glutathione. I did a quick Google search on this crucial amino acid and found over 200,000 articles in PubMed. Why is glutathione so important?
Our immune system and detoxification system cannot function without glutathione. Glutathione is your body's most powerful antioxidant and it is present in every living cell. As our bodies age, it loses the ability to effectively counteract and neutralize free radicals, disease-causing damaged cells. Glutathione has been clinically proven to maximize the metabolism of antioxidants, thus neutralizing and disposing of the free radicals. Addressing glutathione levels has been clinically proven to prevent and treat HIV, AIDS, Alzheimer's, asthma, cancers, cataracts, chronic fatigue, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, fibromyalgia, autism, and seizures. By keeping our intercellular glutathione levels up, we are ensuring that our cells are fully armed so we can prevent disease and age gracefully.
Thanks, Jenny. To learn more about glutathione, go to www.aroodawakening.tv/body, soul, spirit.
And Laban said in verse 48 of chapter 31, this heap is a witness between me and you this day. And he said, Yehovah, watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. And so Yaakov continued on his way and sent messengers unto Esau. And these messengers, they had all of these 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 100 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milch camels in their coats, 40 kine or cattle, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses. And he sent these people ahead to Esau and sent his servants, and when you come across Esau, as he's coming out with 400 armed men against this family, with all these children, 400 men coming out, and when they say, whose are these? Who do they belong to? These belong to Esau. They are a gift from his brother. And so he travels on, and then after a few hours, another load of livestock goes by. Whose are they? Who do they belong to? They're your brothers, and it's a gift to you. And finally, at the end, it's Yaakov, who has divided his family and put his most beloved wife and youngest son, Joseph, at the very end, and divided them into two, because if one of them gets killed, the others can escape. And they've got signals worked out in case they attack one, then the rest take off and get out of here. Well, that night, the Almighty met and wrestled. The angel wrestled with Yaakov and then renamed him Israel at that point. And so now we have Esau and Yaakov coming together. Esau hugging his brother Yaakov and reuniting their friendship. And now we are going to see what transpires in this land filled with Canaanite perversion as Yaakov and his family establish themselves in the very land where they're told to go back and remain there.
Thanks for watching Passover, The Path to Freedom. Next week, we'll continue the journey as we learn about the Hebrew who saved all Egypt, Joseph. Until then, it's been an adventure.